What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Primus, Drymus, or Fluffy Bullet. I don't really know what to record right now, so I'm just going to start off by telling you all about the races and allied races of both factions of the Alliance and the Horde. Before the War Within expansion drops. So, first is obviously the Alliance. Human. If you see here, it says the noble humans of Stormwind stand at the forefront of the Alliance against the enemies of Azeroth. And if you right click, it says the racial traits. One of them is increased hate, critical strike, mastery, and versatility. You got bonus reputation gains, and you can break out of any stun. Next is the Dwarf. The stout dwarves of Ironforged are famed explorers who delve into the world's ancient secrets. And if you right-click the dwarves, their racial traits are may take on a stone form, increased effect from critical strikes, resistant to frost damage, and you find more archaeology fragments and survey faster. Next is the Night Elves. The mystical Night Elves defend the wilds of Azeroth against any who mean harm to nature. And if you right-click them, their racial traits are you'll be able to fade into the shadows. I'm pretty sure that's a you stand still and your stealth until you move. It's more difficult to hit, so that would be like good for a rogue, perhaps. You move faster when dead. You're resistant to nature damage. You have faster movement while stealthed, and faster attacks at night, and increased critical chance during the day. So yeah, basically this Night Elf is a rogue race. Next is the Gnomes, the diminutive and ingenious. Ingenious. I don't know how to say that. Sue me. Gnomes are renowned for creating countless technological wonders, and if you right-click them, they have an ability to escape from speed-altering effects. They have an increased resource pool. They're resistant to arcane damage. Their engineering skill is increased, and they attack faster. So perhaps that could be good for warrior. Draenei. The Draenei fled from demonic corruption and now lend their might to defend Azeroth. If you right-click them, their racial traits are jewel crafting skills are increased. You can heal yourself or others over time. You have increased agility, intellect, and strength, and you are resistant to shadow damage. Next is the Worgen. A curse turned the humans of Gilneas into savage Worgen, who harness their ferocity to aid their allies. If you right-click them, they can periodically move quicker. They have increased crit. They are resistant to nature and shadow damage, and skinning skill and speed are increased. Next is the Pandaren. A spiritual and inquisitive people, the Pandaren have a deep love for cooking, brewing, and adventure. And if you right-click them, they can put enemies to sleep with a touch of your hand. You can receive twice as much rested experience, increased benefits from eating food, cooking skill is increased, and you take less falling damage. And one of our newest ones are the Drakthir. Infused with the magic of the Dragonflights, the Drakthir combine the resourcefulness of mortals with the power of dragons. If you right-click them, their racial traits are you use your wings to glide through the air and soar from high places, unlock dragon riding to empower your soaring, and take to the skies more often. You can knock enemies away with your wings and tail. You have increased mastery, and you find additional rare regents when gathering. Those are the regular races. Now we're going to head over to allied races. The Void Elf. Transformed by forbidden magic, the Void Elves were cast out by their kin and now fight for the Alliance. Their racial traits are you can teleport through a rift in space. You could become empowered by the Void. You could spell cast aren't delayed by damage. Reduced cost for Void storage and transmogrification. And you are resistant to shadow damage. Next is the Lightforged Draenei. The Lightforged Draenei were infused with the Holy Light to become living weapons against evil. Their racial traits are deal mighty holy damage to an area, erupt upon death, damaging nearby enemies and healing nearby allies. You are resistant to holy damage. Blacksmithing skill increased and can summon a forge, and increased experience gained from killing demons. Next are the Dark Iron Dwarves. With fiery tempers and fierce determination, the Dark Iron fight alongside their dwarven kin. Their racial traits are remove harmful effects to empower you, move faster indoors, blacksmithing skill increased and crafts faster, summon a mole machine to transport through the earth, and reduced physical damage taken. Next is the Koltiran. After years of isolation, the proud Koltirans once more lead their naval might to the Alliance. Their racial traits: smash your opponent, stunning and knocking them back, skill in all professions increased, resistant to frost and nature damage, you swim faster and hold your breath longer underwater, and increased versatility and heal a portion of the damage you take. Next is the Mechanome. The clever Mechanomes strive to balance flesh with technology, making them innovative allies. Their racial traits are summon duplicates to confuse your foes, increase in strength as you fight an enemy, act as a personal crafting station, able to pick locks, and heal automatically when badly injured. That, my folks, are the Alliance. Next is the Horde. The Orc. The mighty Orcs came to Azeroth as conquerors, but now strive to reclaim their ancient honor and traditions. Their racial traits are enraged to increase damage, resistant to stun effects, and damage done by pets are increased. Next is the Undead. Raised into undeath, the Forsaken have built a bold future out of the ruins of a darkened past. Their racial traits are remove charm, fear, and sleep effects. They consume corpse to regain health and mana, drain health from enemies, and is resistant to shadow damage. Next is the Torn. The massive Torn serve their beloved Earth Mother and protect the balance of nature. Their racial traits are Stomp, stunning nearby opponents, increased stamina, herbalism skill and speed increased, resistant to nature damage, and increased effects from critical strikes. Next is the Troll. Driven from their jungle homeland by rival tribes, the Darkspear Trolls found allies in the mighty Horde. Their racial traits are Berserk, increased attack and casting speed. Regeneration is increased experience gained from killing beasts, and reduced duration of movements impairing effects. Next is the Blood Elves. Survivors of a brutal war, the Blood Elves drew strength from the magical Sunwell to rebuild their kingdom. Their racial traits are enchanting skill is increased, restore resources like mana or energy, dispel nearby enemies, and resistant to arcane damage. The Goblins, always inventive and often reckless, Goblins are known as skilled engineers and talented merchants. Their racial traits are rocket jump forward, launch rockets at enemies, receive vendor discounts, summon a personal bank, haste is increased, and alchemy skill and potion healing increased. Same with the Pandaren and same with the Drakthir, as we now move on to the allied races of the mighty Horde. Next is the Nightborn. Secluded in Suramar for 10,000 years, the Nightborn developed unrivaled mastery of the arcane arts. Their racial traits are damaged and snare nearby enemies, summon a flying book that acts as a mailbox, increased magical damage, resistant to arcane damage, and description skill is increased. Next is the High Mountain Tauren. Honoring the spirits of earth, river, and sky, the High Mountain Tauren embody nobility and strength. Their racial traits are charge forward, knocking down enemies, reduce damage from incoming attacks, increased versatility, chance to gather more meat and fish, and mining skill and speed are increased. Next is the Maghar Orc. Once rival clans, the uncorrupted orcs of Draenor now stand united as the ferocious Mag'har. Their racial traits are invoke your ancestors, granting their power, faster mount speed outdoors, pet health are increased, and reduced duration on all poison, diseases, and curses. Next are the Zandalari trolls. The Zandalari revere their mystical Loa and command one of Azeroth's most formidable fleets. Their racial traits are heal yourself rapidly over a short time, summon a Loa to obtain one of 6 powerful boons, discover more gold from creatures, and summon a Pterodax to reduce your falling speed. My apologies if I said that wrong. Next are the Volpera. Cunning and resourceful, the Volpera have a knack for thriving in the harshest conditions. And their racial traits are hurl a trick to harm an enemy or help a friend. Choose a place in the world and make it your camp. Take less damage the first time you are hit. Your backpack has now 8 additional slots, and you are resistant to fire damage. And while we're at it, folks, I will go ahead and go and show you every class. Now, first class are warriors. Warriors are plate-wearing fighters who strive for perfection in armed combat. As warriors fight, they generate rage, which is used to power special attacks. Their roles could be a tank or a melee damage. Now if we come here, click class trial, we can look at the specializations. First is arms, a battle-hardened master of weapons, using mobility and overpowering attacks to strike their opponents down. Their preferred weapons are two-handed axes, maces, or swords. Fury, a furious dual-wielding berserker, unleashing a flurry of attacks to carve their opponents to pieces. Preferred weapons are dual two-handed axes, maces, and swords. And then protection, a stalwart protector who uses a shield to safeguard themselves and their allies. Preferred weapons, axe, mace, sword, and shield. Next class is the hunter. Hunters are at home in the wilderness and have a special affinity for beasts. They rely on their weaponry and their pet to deal damage. Their roles are ranged or melee damage. If you come over here, their specializations are beast mastery, a master of the wild who can tame a wide variety of beasts to assist them in combat. Preferred weapons, bow, crossbow, or gun. Marksmanship, a master sharpshooter who excels in bringing down enemies from afar. Preferred weapon, bow, crossbow, or gun. Survival, an adaptive ranger who favors using explosives, animal venom, and coordinated attacks with their bonded beasts. Preferred weapon, polearm or staff. Next is the mage. Mages are iconic mage users of Azeroth, magic users of Azeroth, who learn their craft through intense research and study. They make up for their light armor with a potent array of offensive and defensive spells. Their specializations are arcane, manipulates raw arcane magic, destroying enemies with overwhelming power. Their preferred weapons are staffs, wands, daggers, or swords. Next is fire, focusing their pure essence of fire magic, assaulting enemies with combustive flames. Preferred weapons, staff, wands, daggers, and swords. And next is frost, freezes enemies in their tracks and shatters them with frost magic. Preferred weapons, staff, wand, daggers, and swords. Next class is the rogue. Rogues often serve as assassins or scouts, though many are lone wolves as well. Rogues can often sneak around enemies or attack an opponent from behind to try and finish them off quickly. Their role are melee damage. I don't know if I said this, but the mages are range damage. These guys' specialization is assassination, a deadly master of poisons who dispatches victims with vicious dagger strikes. Their preferred weapons, daggers. Outlaw, a ruthless fugitive who uses agility and guile to stand toe-to-toe with enemies. Preferred weapons, axes, maces, swords, and fist weapons. Subtlety, A dark stalker who leaps from the shadows to ambush their unexpected prey. Their preferred weapons are daggers. Next is the priest. Priests are well-rounded healers with a variety of tools, however they can also sacrifice their healing to deal damage with shadow magic. Their roles are healers or ranged damage. One of the specializations is Discipline. He uses magic to shield allies from taking damage as well as heal their wounds. Preferred weapons, staffs, wands, daggers, or maces. Next is Holy, a versatile healer who can reverse damage on individuals or groups and even heal from beyond the grave. Preferred weapons, staff, wands, daggers, and maces. And the DPS is Shadow. Use sinister shadow magic and terrifying void magic to eradicate enemies. Preferred weapons, staffs, wands, daggers, and maces. Next is the Warlocks. Warlocks cast fire or shadow damage to damage, drain, or curse their enemies. They summon demons as servants. Their role is a ranged DPS. Their specialization is Affliction, a master of shadow magic who specializes in drains and damage overtime spells. Preferred weapons, staffs, wands, daggers, and swords. Next is Demonology, a commander of demons who twists the souls of their army into devastating power. Preferred weapons, staffs, wands, daggers, and swords. And last is Destruction, a master of chaos who calls down fire to burn and demolish enemies. Preferred weapons, staffs, wands, daggers, and swords. Next is the Paladin. Paladins are heavily armored fighters and defenders who use holy magic to heal wounds and combat evil. They can focus on two-handed weapons, shields, or healing. Their roles are tank, healer, or melee damage. Their specializations is Holy, invokes the power of the holy light to heal and protect allies and vanquish evil from the darkest corners of the world. Preferred weapons, sword, mace, and shield. Protection, uses holy magic to shield themselves and defend allies from attackers. Preferred weapons, sword, mace, axe, and shield. And lastly is Retribution, a righteous crusader who judges and punishes opponents with weapons and holy magic. Preferred weapons, two-handed swords, maces, and axe. Next is the Druid. Druids are shapeshifters with an affinity for the plant and animal kingdoms. Druids can specialize in healing, casting spells at range, or taken on the form of a cat or bear to fight in melee. Roles are tank, healer, range damage, or melee damage. Their specializations is Balance, can shapeshift into a powerful moonkin, balancing the power of arcane and nature magic to destroy enemies. Preferred weapons are staffs, daggers, and maces. Next is Feral, takes on the form of a great cat to deal damage with bleeds and bites. Next is Guardian, takes on the form of a mighty bear to absorb damage and protect allies. Preferred weapons, staffs, or polearms. And lastly, Restoration, channels powerful nature magic to regenerate and revitalize allies. Preferred weapons, staffs, daggers, and maces. Shamans use the power of the elements to enhance their weapon damage or spells. Shaman summons totems in combat, small objects that disable enemies, heal, or cause damage to enemies. Roles are healer, ranged damage, or melee damage. And their specializations are Elemental, a spellcaster who harnesses the destructive forces of nature and the elements. Preferred weapons, mace, dagger, and shield. Next is Enhancement, a totemic warrior who strikes foes with weapons imbued with elemental power. Preferred weapons, dual axes, maces, or fist weapons. And Restoration, a healer who calls upon ancestral spirits and the cleansing power of water to mend allies' wounds. Preferred weapons are mace, daggers, and shields. Next is the Monk. Monks are known for their skill in hand-to-hand fighting, relying on their fists and feet as much as their weapons. Monks can also specialize in calling upon the restorative power of the mists to heal allies. Their roles are tanks, healers, or melee damage. Their specializations are Brewmaster, a sturdy brawler who uses unpredictable movement and mystical brews to avoid damage and protect allies. Their preferred weapons are staffs or polearms. Next is Mistweaver, a healer who masters the mysterious art of manipulating life energies, aided by the wisdom of the Jade Serpent. Preferred weapons: staffs, maces, or swords. And lastly, Windwalker, a martial artist without peer who pummels foes with hand and fists. Preferred weapons: fist weapons, axes, maces, and swords. Next is the Demon Hunter. Demon Hunters are a hero class, which means they start at higher level. Demon Hunters are dark outcasts that use forbidden demonic magic to hunt and kill their enemies. Roles are tank or melee DPS. Specializations: Havoc, a brooding master of warglaives and the destructive power of fell magic. Preferred weapons: warglaives, swords, axes, or fist weapons. And lastly, Vengeance, embracing the demon within to incinerate enemies and protect their allies. Preferred weapons: warglaives, swords, axes, and fist weapons. Next are Death Knights. Death Knights are a hero class, which means they start at higher level. Death Knights are a melee class with an emphasis on causing disease and dark magic. Their specialization are Blood, a dark guardian who manipulates and corrupts life energy to sustain themselves in the face of an enemy's onslaught. Preferred weapons: two-handed axes, maces, and swords. Frost, an icy harbinger of doom, channeling runic power and delivering vicious weapon strikes. Preferred weapons: dual axes, maces, and swords. And Unholy, a master of death and decay, spreading infection and controlling undead minions to do their bidding. Preferred weapons: two-handed axes, maces, and swords. And Evoker. Evokers are a hero class, which means they will start at a higher level. Evokers are innate casters who unleash devastating draconic spells on enemies or healing magic for allies. Roles are healer or DPS. And I can't click on this to show y'all, but I already know the specializations for the Evoker, which is Preservation, Devastation, and Augmentation. Augmentation is basically a buff class. Preservation is a healer class, and Devastation is a DPS class. I hope y'all liked today's video. If y'all want any more related content to this, please like and subscribe, and if y'all have any concerns or questions, please drop a comment. Till next time, my fellow Azeroth friend.